And I see we've got some attendees coming in now.
Great.
That's great.
Fantastic. Screen looking okay, Leslie, to you?
Yes, looks great.
Okay, fantastic.
So we have Cisco, which has WebEx, Microsoft Teams, and we decided to use Zoom for video.
Sorry. You know what the NC State license is now, right?
I'm loving that on all of the calls, that, like where we don't get an option. It's just like, okay.
Our apologies, friends.
Right.
No worries.
Yeah, like the email also said, oh, by the way, do not, was it here or some other company said, do not use Microsoft Edge. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's what I use. Yeah, I think it was the career fair virtual registration or a virtual app download kind of a thing. That's what it says. I'm like, the new Edge is based off same engine as Chrome is, so that's no longer an issue. So
right. Yeah, the guidance we were given by our vendor for the career fair said no Microsoft Edge or Explorer. I thought that's really odd, but yeah, you need to talk to them, Katen. We'll set up a meeting. So. Have you heard, Leslie, from we have one more panelist? Any?
Okay, so Mike is texting me. He's having trouble
logging
in on his phone. So.
Okay.
So Jonathan couldn't make it today. Ron, you're covering for Jonathan?
Yes, Jonathan couldn't make it. And I'm in California, but I work pretty closely with Jonathan.
Okay.
You know, a lot of Synopsys is in the Bay Area.
Oh yeah, I work with you folks. I'm your customer, so.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, here he is. Here's Mike. Yay.
There he comes.
Thankful to have panelists that I can just text.
That's okay.
Hey, Mike.
Oh,
how you doing?
hi.
Glad you're here. And
Good
our
to be
students are joining rapidly, so that's great to see.
Perfect. All right. How are you doing down there in Florida, Mr. Mike?
Doing well. Staying safe. All's good. How are you?
Good, good. Doing well. Doing well. All right. You want to get rolling, Leslie? What do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody to our joint computer science and electrical and computer engineering career fair and interviewing prep panel. We are so glad you're here tonight. We know that this is a semester like no other, and you have spent a lot of hours already today on this very interface learning and communicating and collaborating with your peers, and we're glad that you took the time out of your schedules to do that with us tonight. We also want to thank our panelists. The dedication you have given to our students by presenting with us this evening is something we're very grateful for, and we know our students will learn several nuggets of wisdom that they will carry forward into this recruiting season and will help make them better professionals in the long run. So very thankful. With that, let me introduce myself, Sarah Consini, Director of Graduate Career Services and Interim Director of Corporate Relations for Electrical and Computer Engineering. And I'll turn it over to my co-host to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Leslie Rand Pickett. I'm the Director of Graduate Career Services for the Department of Computer Science. And Sarah and I are going to be kind of bouncing back and forth tonight. We have some pre-prepared questions, and then we also have capability for students to send questions through the Q&A as well. So we'll be monitoring both.
Fantastic. Why don't we start, panelists, giving you the opportunity to introduce yourselves. And what I'll do is maybe ask Jackie if you wouldn't mind starting for us, and then call to the next person on your screen to introduce themselves.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jackie Schuler. I'm with Cisco, and I'm the America's University Strategy Lead. I manage our team of university relations managers and specialists, and I work with our business units to build out our strategy for all of the roles that we have.
Great, thanks. And Ron?
Okay, I'm happy to go next. My name is Ron Duncan, and I work with Synopsys, and I am in the Bay Area, and I am an engineering manager. Synopsys, we make software for chip design, and I lead a team of applications engineers, typically electrical engineers, and we are looking for electrical engineers and software engineers. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Katen?
Hey, my name is Katen Patel. I work for Microsoft. I'm based right here in the Triangle area. We set up a team here a couple of years back for silicon design. So I'm one of the development managers working primarily on core semiconductor core processor design and system on a chip, and utilize Synopsys tools to do a lot of our work. So nice to be here. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. And Mike?
Hi, everybody. Mike Phillips here. I work for MetLife in our global technology division, mainly working with the MetLife Technical University internship and professional programs. So I recruit for both, but I run the internship program as program manager, working on a team with Jenny Hoffler. Good to be here.
Thanks, Mike. All right, just a few housekeeping items for you students and viewers this evening. If you would, in the webinar, utilize the Q&A feature to ask your questions. I'm going to be delivering some pre-prepared questions to our panelists. Leslie's going to monitor the Q&A chat and let me know what's, let's see, lost some sharing capabilities here. And we'll go forward like that. So I'll ask the questions, and then it will Leslie will monitor what comes in the chat. Okay. There should be. Is there a link in the chat feature itself? Actually, Leslie, a link to the kiosk.
Yes, I put that up, and we've had lots of students check in already. But students, if you have not, please, the sign-in link. Yes, I will, Dallin, I will repost that for you. Thank you for your question. We will post the key.
And in addition, at the end of the webinar, you will be sent directly to a link where you will be able to sign into the kiosk as well. So if you don't get to it during the presentation, don't worry. We'll get you at the very end of the workshop. And last but not least, take notes in whatever fashion you prefer, as this panel of experts will give you some really fantastic advice that you can carry forward as you get ready for the recruiting season. All right. I'm gonna jump on to panelists. Let's kick off. Let's talk about this virtual world we're living in. How do we, and by we, I mean the students, how do we dress and prepare? So let's talk about what to wear. So on our person, and then how do we prepare our company knowledge and preparing their physical space for your virtual interviews. And let's see who we should go to. Who wants to field this question first? Anybody?
I'll go. That's fine. You should dress professionally. Please turn on your video camera if that option is available. Given it's all going to be virtual, people do like to see each other while you're going to interviews, and having that eye contact is helpful. There's a lot of distraction with video also, so just be careful when you're going, but do dress professionally and do research on the companies that you're going after. What kind of job postings they have, what kind of work they are doing, right? What kind of skills they are looking for, right? So that study up. That's very, very critical in terms of what business the companies are in for. And each of our companies are different. So you had to go ahead and figure that out in terms of what they're doing, what are they looking for, how do you fit into that particular company, right? So I'll let others chime in.
Yeah, I will totally agree. I mean, I know working in pajamas can be very comfortable, but I think getting dressed and being ready for the day, it really puts you in the right work mindset in regards to how you're going to show up. Another thing I would say, be aware of the background when you're sharing your video. Be aware if you're on mute. There are just a couple of things. You just have to kind of look at all of those things and just be mindful, because you only get one time to make a first impression. And, since we're not necessarily on campus as much as we would be in this virtual world, this may be your opportunity. And then again, do the research. If you're coming to talk to a company, the thing that I hate hearing is, so what do you guys do? And based on my background, what do you think I can do for you all? So I think, again, it's okay if you don't know necessarily what you want to do, but going and do the research and finding out about the company and the products that they make or what they do and the different roles that they have, it really will give you an opportunity to ask questions to see where your background does align.
I like those comments, and I will chime in just a little bit. In terms of dress, I certainly think that you don't need to wear, say, a suit and tie, but you should look neat, neat on the camera. And I would say if you're doing some research, it's good to know what positions are typically available at the company that you're looking at. You may even know which exact openings are available, but if you at least know what types of job openings are available, that certainly is something that we can quickly talk about. Like you can say, I'm sort of interested in a certain area, a certain field, tell me more about that. And that's a way that we can, quickly make progress in terms of getting to know each other.
I guess I would also add that when you're doing your research, make sure that you're researching information that really isn't just easily found by doing a simple search, like knowing like what year we started. Like I certainly like that, knowing how many customers we have. But when you look into, and I've had a few students I've spoken with this week who have asked about our sustainability report, our efforts to go carbon neutral, asking about things that are beyond just the general. It shows you really did your work and really looked into the company. So really for any of the companies on here, or any of the companies that you're interested in, do a little bit deeper digging. I would say is the best part. And everyone's covered pretty much everything with the dress code, so I'll let that one go.
Fantastic. Thank you all. I think we've gotten the message, right, everybody? Loud and clear. Do your research. Let's talk a little bit about how a student should introduce themselves to you, and the big question, how do they follow up with you after they meet you? Who wants to tackle that?
This is Ron. I'll jump in real quick on the introduction. I think you can be pretty straightforward. I'm typically looking for a few general bits of information just to position you in my mind. Please say your name. I like to use people's names, and oftentimes you need to hear it said once or twice if it's not a common name. And then what is your exact degree program? If I don't have that information in front of me, when you will graduate, and what you're looking for, because I immediately want to understand, are you looking for an internship? Are you looking for a full-time position? And so those things are some very quick things that we can get out of the way, and I can understand a little bit better what to talk to you about. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's the whole conversation, but then going to the follow-up. My advice at real career fairs, at live career fairs, is be aggressive. If you talk to someone at the career fair and you like that company, certainly follow up with an email. It never hurts to get one extra email. I'm not bothered as a hiring manager. I'm never bothered by getting an email from someone who says they are interested in my position. And if you follow up in an email, and you can reference our conversation, that's even a little bit more. I can begin to remember and imagine who you are and what we talked about.
To piggyback on that, I think also connecting with the individual on LinkedIn after the event, it's a great opportunity to chat a little bit more depending on the time constraints. Also asking for an email depending on, you know, the volunteer, even if the volunteer that we may have, because typically we have volunteers from our business that are going out, we can make sure that there's a university relations manager, that you have that person's point of contact. So if the volunteer, for some reason, you couldn't get it, we can make sure that, okay, hey, I know that ML is the university relations manager for NC State. Let me get her information, and then that information can be forwarded on.
My favorite thing now, I think, with recruiting, when meeting somebody, you know, in the way that we're meeting now, is tell me something you've learned recently, you know, or tell me about maybe a mobile app you developed. You can tell me, just, you know, in a few minutes, talk to several students this week who are getting ready to have mobile apps on the Apple Store. I think that's awesome. Like, I want to hear about those things. And if you can tell those stories briefly, that gets you talking about your passion, which is what I really want to hear. Is like, what are you excited about? Why did you get into technology in the first place? That type of thing sparks a smile. I notice it right away, and then you're excited. It'll loosen you up a little bit, and you'll be ready to have a great conversation with us as recruiters. So I would say talk about something like that when you do a brief introduction. I enjoy hearing those things. I wish I could do all those things. I can't. I just hire geniuses.
And just to add something to everything everyone else said, but also be authentic when you're having that interview, right? Be honest. If somebody doesn't have an answer and tries to answer things, we can figure it out very, very quickly, right? So be very, if you're honest about what you know, what you don't know, it goes a long way, because you have to show your aptitude towards learning and acquiring new skills. That's what really matters. None of us, I tell this to quite a few new college grads that we hire, right? 5 years down the road, whatever you have learned in school is all obsolete, because the technology moves at such a fast pace. So what we really have to look for is, how do you adapt to things? How do you acquire new skills? How do you manage change? Those are the kind of things that we are really looking for. In addition to your technical background, technical skills, your grades, yeah, all of those things matter. But at the same time, there are a lot of these different soft skills that come in along. Is very helpful, and that shows out in your interview. You need to make sure you're highlighting those things too.
Actually, a great segue from that point is that a couple of students have asked some questions about some of the things that you're looking for, especially for students who maybe don't have a lot of relevant experience yet. Maybe they're looking for that first internship. So, are there things that they should be emphasizing if they are, a newer student that is just starting in the field? So, are some of those transferable skills maybe as relevant? What do you recommend for them?
For an internship, you can highlight certain areas that you're interested in, right? Because it's very difficult to know what you really want to do unless until you get in and learn from it. So be open to different areas, especially if you're major like I am, computer engineering, electrical engineering. Don't just pinpoint to one thing unless you're absolutely certain that's what your proficiency is and you can really master that, and there are things available. If you're not sure, open up to yourself and be adaptable to different positions that may be available, right? If you want to do only one thing and the hiring manager really likes you but doesn't have that, even though the person likes you, they may not be able to hire you because you're really not interested in doing what they want you to do, right? So
I think also even though you may not have professional experience, you can highlight those group projects, those class projects that you've done. You can also highlight projects that you've done on your own. I think that, you know, if you've done something, you know, to learn maybe a new language, if you wrote a mobile app or if you wrote a small game, that says a lot that you want to learn, and also will allow the interviewer to find out more about how you go about learning and your thought process of how you got to, you know, the end result, and, you know, what changes you would potentially make. So I don't think you necessarily have to have that real world experience. In a sense, you can look at projects, you can talk about projects that you've worked on in school and also outside of classes.
I will say, even as a freshman, because I noticed a couple of you who are freshmen typed these questions, I've hired a couple of freshmen as interns in my group, and you'll be surprised at what you do know. You'll be surprised at the, you know, maybe some basic skills that you've brought just from 1 year of school, how they can be deployed in a work setting, and you'll be even more surprised at what you can learn. And so I'm really excited to find people that want to learn something new, because you're not going to know whatever it is we want you to do. I just want you to be able to jump in and learn it.
Right. Focus on the experiences you do have, what you have, and, you know, and what you've done on your resume. If it's a group projects or if it's the classes or teaching yourself something, don't worry about the things you haven't done yet. I'm more interested in hearing what you've already done.
Talking about the group projects, right? You should be able to highlight what you did, right? That's because we want to see, as hiring managers, we want to see what kind of collaboration work you did on those projects, right? Things that you mastered, that's fine, but at the same time, how you work with other people on the team, right? That collaboration is extremely important as you go into the industry and work, because these programs are so big that not one person can really handle it, right? So you have to work across teams to be able to get things done. So you need to make sure you're stressing that.
And it may not have been a technical project that you worked on, but you still built that skill of working together and collaborating.
Absolutely. A lot of undergrad students that I have talked to have a lot of other project-related experiences which are not technical in nature, especially things that they have done on campus. Now, granted, this last one semester hasn't been where people have been on campus, but the things that you have done outside, even in the community, goes a long way, right? How you have gone about helping people out during the tough times. It makes a big of a difference in terms of how we look at it and how we approach things, right? So.
Leslie, is there more in the chat or that we should address? I want to make sure we get to.
I think we've gotten to certainly most of them. I think one of the other things I think that students are looking for is, you know, kind of conversely to those broader transferable skills might be, you know, are there specific courses, experiences, skills that your organization really looks for when they're hiring either interns or new graduates for roles?
I'll start. Certain things that, and I think this is true really across the industry, where there used to be time when people were really just looking at your technical knowledge, technical skills kind of a thing, but there's tremendous amount of influence in this holistic approach of hiring people, looking at your soft skills. I talked about collaboration, but your passion, how do you drive towards results? How do you go about handling changes, right? Those kind of experiences go a long way in terms of making yourself more marketable to a prospective employer.
You know, I would say from the point of view of courses or academic experiences, we're pretty open in terms of, I mean, there's a broad wealth of experiences and classes that you can take, you know, at a fantastic university like this one. And so I just want to see that you are taking advantage of the opportunities that are there, and, you know, learning in certain areas. It could be, who knows, maybe it is app development or machine learning or something different. But, you know, I don't think there's any one course or small set of classes that is important. It's just that you are taking advantage of what's offered.
I agree. Even when I think about the technical roles that we have, depending on the group, they look for different things. You know, overarching, it may be Java, JavaScript, Python, C++. It's a little bit of everything. At the end of the day, we're looking to hire really smart people that want to be challenged. So as everyone else has mentioned, it's not necessarily a specific course. You know, oh, well, this person hasn't taken data structures. No, we're not going to talk to them. It's not based on that at all.
Anybody else on that before we go on? Okay. So the students have talked with you in their one-on-one sessions at these virtual career fairs. What happens with your team next? Do you have one point person, or do you farm out resumes? Do you get together and talk? How do the next steps look?
Sure. For Cisco, first and foremost, we need the students to apply for the role that they're interested in. That gets them into the pipeline, and that starts the process. We also go about getting feedback from the volunteers that they've met on campus. They are able to make recommendations as to where a person would be a good fit. Depending on if we met them at a virtual career fair, the next steps may be a coffee chat where it's a little bit more intimate, so we can get to know them a little bit better and spend more time with them. And then we may go to the interview process. Depending on the role, our technical roles have a software assessment. So they would do a software assessment, and then after the software assessment, we would review and then would set up the student for a coffee chat or for an applicable interview, depending on the group. Still taking feedback into consideration that we received from the volunteer that they've already met on campus.
Yeah, at Microsoft, it's very similar. Everyone has pretty similar format, but we'd usually go through and somebody from the team would reach out and talk to the person, and then if there's further interest, then we'll have what we call it is an interview loop, where we have multiple people talking, interviewing to determine what we want to do, and then usually we'll have a group discussion after we have made our selections in terms of what we want to do and make a decision based on that, right? So that's how we go about doing it. It's a combination of individual and group panel discussion.
And at Synopsys, it's very much the same. I think, coming from a career fair, you do need to apply to a specific position. The hiring managers for that position see all the applicants for that position, and the hiring managers generally will set up, with the help of HR and recruiting, set up phone interviews. And I love to do a team interview, a group interview, and then we make a team decision. And so I think it's very similar to most everybody else in the industry.
So we do individual interviews. That's pretty much the only way we're doing it right now, especially with virtually this year. Our second round interview process in the past has been a little bit more of a group setup. When we're able to have that, it might change a little bit this year in the virtual setup, but absolutely application. I go through and look at most of the resumes for moving to the first round. I do a lot of the first round interviews, unless it's at a focus school, and one of our campuses certainly is NC State. So we will be doing interviews there sometime, I think in the middle of I think it's October, and then deciding on second round. From there, we only have the 2 rounds, but we don't have a real group interview set up right now, mainly individual.
There's been a lot of questions from the students coming in about what types of questions do you all ask as we're moving into interviews. So, when a student is preparing for interviews with your organizations, should they expect technical interview questions? And, what kinds of questions can they anticipate if you say this is going to be a technical interview versus, some other type of interview? So I think they would just love to hear, what kinds of questions are asked. Maybe some examples could be helpful to them if you have any.
I think the quick answer is, if you're interviewing for a technical position, Of course, you want the company or the organization that you're talking to understand if you're a good technical fit. So of course, there will be some technical interview or technical discussion. I'm generally looking for not that you know the answers to specific questions. Number one, I usually want to know what is the area of your interest, and let's talk more technically about that. If you are not adept at describing the projects that you worked on, it's probably not a good sign. Other than that, I think if you work on, or if we discuss general technical areas that this particular position is involved in, I would expect that. So that's going to vary from, is it a system software position? Is it a chip design position? It could vary quite a bit. But I think in all cases, we're not looking for you to stump you with some kind of quiz. We're looking to sort of generally explore and understand, what's the breadth and depth of your understanding in a particular technical area.
Yeah, piggyback on what Ron is saying. If you have something on your resume, you should be prepared to answer the question. So if you put down you're proficient in Perl, expect a tough question from one of our team members on that, because you said you're proficient. That means your expertise level is pretty high, right? So expect tough questions on it. So you want to be honest in terms of what your capabilities are, right? You want to exhibit those things at the same time. You don't want to put something on your resume where you really aren't, because as soon as that goes down, it's really people take it very negatively, right? So we have seen several times that people who put something, even though they had a lot of other good skills, right? Doesn't mean we didn't hire them, but we talked about it, right? So you want to be very honest in terms of what you do, and you should be able to talk technically for the things that you put in a resume. If you put on a project, you should be able to explain that in very much detail if we go down that deep, right? And sometimes some of your project stuff, you can highlight it as part of what I call it is a soft skill question that comes in. Tell me about a thing when you had a problem and how did you go about solving it? We want to see how you relate that to the project that you worked on or work experience that you had either prior to your schooling or during your internship kind of a thing, because that shows how you're able to relate both of those things together. We want to see concrete examples for those kind of questions that come up.
I'll go. Most of our first round interview questions, I would say, are more behavioral in nature. I'll ask about critical thinking, about problem solving skills. I want to see if you'd be a good fit for the fast-paced life that can be corporate at times, and that you're able to learn quickly and you're able to pivot quickly, and you're able to get the work done. Technical questions will usually come in the later rounds when you're interviewing for a more specific role in our case, but it's going to be a little bit more behavioral up front. And that is one of the questions I like to ask is talking about a time when you were able to learn a new system or a new process or a new tool quickly and how you were able to do that, and then hearing that story.
Anybody else have any feedback on that? Okay. Just kind of as a quick follow-up, for any of you who hire for software development roles, do interviews actually involve writing code or debugging example problems?
Depends on the position, absolutely. And Microsoft, definitely it happens. I mean, we are a pretty big company, so certain things do vary from group to group, organization to organization, division to division. But I have heard cases where absolutely those things do happen. Same thing with problem solving, even on engineering side. If you've done something, things will be drawn out. Now, even including whiteboard, but through our online virtual interviews, and you'll be asked to solve things, right? So expect that to happen, absolutely.
Yep,
Sure.
I will totally agree with that as well. Depending on the group, there will be whiteboarding, there will be debugging issues. It just depends on the particular group and what their needs are. But yes.
Right. Thank you.
I would comment. I have been known to in a virtual interview I'll have up on my desktop perhaps a problem that I've been working on, or a chip that we're looking at, or some applications code that, and I'll just pull it up and I'll say, hey, in this code right here, and I might ask a question or two. I'm not asking them to write write a whole block of code, but let's just talk about what we see here. And you can learn a lot both ways. You can learn a lot about what the company does by looking at the problems that we solve.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Hopefully good cooperative solving of the problem.
one thing I would add is there are people that I know who are known for it. They'll start with a problem which is very simple, and they will build on top of it until you're not able to answer. Doesn't mean you fail. It helps us sometimes to gauge your level of knowledge, right? I know quite a few experienced people on my team that would go ahead and do that. Start out with basic and keep on adding to it to figure out, okay, where is the line, and then give you tips to figure out how to solve the problem. So take those cues when you're working through it, right? So, and it's okay to ask for more clarification when a question is asked, right? Especially when we are doing all of this in virtual thing this year. That's how it's going to be for most of the people. So you will have to be more proactive in terms of following up on the questions and asking for clarifications, and how do you go about doing it. And time is of essence, right? You're going to have very limited time, so you have to make sure you're able to cram things in, right? So
that's great feedback. Thank you. One other question, Sarah, if I can. Just a couple of folks had some questions related to should they go for depth or breadth? So is it generally better for students to kind of focus on one area, like web development, or should they, get a broader variety of technical tools in their toolkit that they can offer to a company? What are you all seeing and thinking in your organization?
When I think about the breadth piece, I think, again, as they had mentioned previously, if you have it on your resume, it's a possibility that an interviewer is really going to dig deep and want to know more information on it. So let's say you have a lot of tools, you have all of these languages that are listed, but like you're not as proficient. It's just like you kind of glossed over it versus, okay, I may have 2 or 3 things that I'm really, really proficient in, that I'm good in, that I can, interview, I can speak to. I can sell myself with that versus listing all of these things just to say I have them, but not really having a lot of experience in them.
I would say I'm looking for depth if you're going for one specific thing. So if you're coming to the interview and you really want to be in application and software development, I'm going to want to hear the most about that. But if you're thinking application and software development, but you also want to see what's going on with potentially data science, and you're in that space as well, then I'm going to want to hear a little bit about each one. So I guess it really depends on what you're looking to do, the most, and where your main interests are. But that helps me figure out where that next round of interviewing might go based on where you want to be.
I would say that's sort of a hard question, because I'm kind of maybe a chameleon. I want to match with who you are when I talk to you. So if you're a graduate student, if you're a third-year graduate student, and you come to talk to me about semiconductor device modeling, I'm looking for depth, and we can go deep. If you are a sophomore and you're a CS major, I think you should go broad and learn about the scope of the industry and the scope of the problem set. And the reality is also that if you have, say, 2 years of schooling, I really don't expect a ton of depth nor breadth. I want to be realistic, and you've had 4 semesters of schooling, and so we calibrate towards that. A bit of advice I would say is learn a lot about everything. Learn a little bit about everything, but pick 1 or 2 areas over time that you really distinguish yourself in. So that's sort of answering and saying both.
I agree with Ron. For interns, if you have undergrad interns and they only have 2 years of college, obviously you cannot expect same level of depth or breadth from that person compared to a senior in undergrad or even a graduate student, right? So graduate students, obviously the expectations are much higher. NC State has wonderful programs in terms of how all the projects are done, all the different EDA tools that are used, right? So we look at that of what kind of projects they have done in their grad school. So it all depends upon whether you're an undergrad or grad, or you're going for an internship, or you're going for a full-time position, right? A lot of companies, internship is a way of getting into full-time, right? So if you have an opportunity of becoming an intern, and a company like Microsoft, we value our interns tremendously in terms of that is really our hiring pipeline for future jobs. Doesn't mean we don't hire who are not our interns, but it does give us, I call it as a blind date, right, between the employer and the future employee, because it allows us to showcase what we are made up of. At the same time, it allows the students to showcase what they can do, what they have learned, what kind of initiatives they have for future learning. So it really helps us in terms of gauging stuff out. And all depends upon your undergrad or grad. The other thing to keep in mind is in your career, right, when you start out as a job for full-time or an intern, chances are you will not be doing that 5 years down the road. Okay? Your job will evolve. Even if you're in the same area of, let's say, processor design or chip design kind of a thing, a lot of things are moving at a very breakneck pace in the industry that you will be doing some things which are really different. You learn from it what you have, so you have to be flexible, agile in terms of acquiring new skills, right? So keep that in mind as you go through it. Don't think of it, oh, I can't take that job because I'm going to be just pigeonholed in it. Now our industry is moving so fast, the whole technology industry, that chances are you'll be doing something different 4 or 5 years down the road. So.
Those are great answers. Thank you so much. Just one more from me with the Q&A, and then I'll let Sarah get back to some of our pre-planned ones. This one is so timely. How are companies approaching recruitment this year, considering COVID-19 and all the challenges? How has that changed your process?
I think for us, we're just doing everything virtually, but we have to be very mindful in regards to the type of events. We have to be mindful, and I'm going to say WebEx burnout in regards to realizing that students are, taking classes online and they're going to all of these sessions. So, really coming up with events that really allow that one-on-one engagement, but it also, we want to be mindful of the time that we have events. We want to be mindful of the length of the events, and we want to be mindful that the information that we're bringing to a student is something that they can't Google. We want to make sure that they're really getting good chunks of detail in regards to this is what a role is like, and actually bringing in those individuals and having those individuals present that are in the role that the students are looking for. But in terms of the type of events, we're just doing them virtually. We're doing information sessions virtually, one-on-ones, coffee chats virtually. We're just, switching it up, but being mindful of the platforms that are there, and, just trying to think of it from a student's perspective in regards to what they can get out of it, and how it can still be beneficial for both parties.
One thing I'll say when it comes to looking at next year's internship program, now that we've been able to do it once virtually and it worked very well, there's definitely going to be a plan in place to have it in either model, because we want to make sure that we're ready to pivot quickly based on wherever the country is at that time, with where we are with with COVID. So I think that's an important thing about what we're going to do this year. But again, I know it's a lot of time on camera, but we're going to do the best we can this year with this in this atmosphere, making sure that students feel safe and they feel comfortable until we're ready to go back face to face.
Yeah, so we at Microsoft are going all virtual. All of our career fairs throughout the US is going to be all virtual. We also have a LinkedIn group page for Microsoft University recruiting that I would urge. I think some of the students from NC State have already signed up for it, but others who haven't, please do that, because do reach out there so you can get a lot of information in regards to our plans and our recruiting campaign for the students who are graduating this fall and next summer, right? So reach out to that. It's a I believe it's called Microsoft University Recruiting Group on LinkedIn. So please reach out there and register yourself. So that way you get information. We have our recruiters who are constantly updating information in there. So, and it's all going to be virtual, including all the internship interviews and full-time interviews. Actually, right now we have bunch of interviews going on for another site, and we have people from all over the country doing the interviews. And I fully expect the future of recruiting to change. Right, this is a tremendous amount of lesson for all of the big corporations. They are learning, we are all learning, and we are going to hone our future recruiting strategies that we can take advantage of distance interviewing and everything. We used to always do this, but things that we've been doing over the last 5 to 6 months, and we've been onboarding quite a few people here in the Raleigh area at Microsoft, and all of that stuff is done virtually, and we have come up with a whole different way of doing how to adapt to it, right? So a lot of things are going to change for students who are out there in the college. So you have to keep an eye on in terms of how different corporations are going to manage future recruiting, right? So keep an eye on it, and you have to adapt to the changes that are going to happen. It's very, very critical we do that.
I don't have a lot to add to that synopsis. I think we're going to be doing some of the same types of things that have already been spoken about. And I have these sort of mixed feelings. I think it's great on one hand that we can reach more people, and you can talk to more and more people virtually than you could ever do in person. I do miss, I usually do a technology talk at several universities, and I just miss talking to the students and kind of touching and feeling, not literally, but being with the crowd, and you get a feel of the university when you're there. Conversely, if you're a student and you're interviewing, it's wonderful to get a feel of the work environment by coming on site. So I have mixed feelings about where we are, but we are where we are. And
I agree with you, Ron. Yep, I miss that, not being able to see people, be able to see body language, the reaction, how they interact with you. It's very, very different trying to do it over, over video than it is in doing it in person. So I hope we don't completely go the other way, but I do see a future where quite a bit of follow-up stuff will happen over video, right? So.
Anybody else? I think we hit on that one. How about Leslie? Anything else from the chat? I want to make sure we're getting to what the students are wanting.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay. So just sort of, and I think Katen, you kind of touched on it a little bit. What happens with a total flop? Okay, a career fair, the student logs in and the technology blows up. Zoom goes out of whack, the computer breaks, the internet goes out. What kinds of things are you looking for from your candidates in terms of literally a reboot here on when things go bad or you have bad answers to questions?
Pick up your cell phone. If your computer and all that stuff dies, pick up your cell phone, call the person. Hey, I'm having an issue with this stuff. Either I can talk to you on the phone, or we can reschedule it. That just shows that you're able to find an alternate way of getting hold of people, right? To be able to either reschedule or something. If you don't hear anything, then it becomes, okay, what's really going on, right? You have to do that. You have to follow up in terms of if you're really having technical issues. Best thing is test it out before you get on. Make sure your camera, browser, all of that stuff is working correctly. Don't schedule back to back. That way, if you have any technical issues, you have a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break between things so that you can get to another virtual session, depending on how NC State is doing it. If it's 10-minute interval, then you want to have some time in between. So if the first one runs over, you are able to go ahead and catch up with the other one, right? So.
And Sarah, if I can piggyback on that, and be mindful that the interviewer may be having some technical issues as well. So give us some grace too, because you never know. We may have to dial back in and we may be picking up the phone to call you back as well. It's just a two-way street with all of these things, and everything just kind of happens.
Yeah, I mean, this is newer to us as well. I mean, this is certainly my first virtual fairs that I've been a part of in the 5 years I've been here. At MetLife and doing this. So I would just say don't get nervous, because I know that if something goes wrong on your end and something drops out, you're probably going to panic and freak out and think that we're upset with you or that you can't get back on the call. But just take a deep breath, dial back in, and we'll just take it as we go, because we're learning too at the same time you're learning. We don't want you being nervous. That won't get us, that won't get us to talking about your projects and what your passions are. So just let's get back into the call, not worry about it, and move ahead. We got this.
That's great. Great advice all around. Thank you all so much. One question that a student had that's a good follow-up from this is the way that the NC State fairs are going to be arranged this year. Of course, students are booking those appointments in advance, and schedules are filling up for those slots. So while students will avoid standing in line for a couple of hours to talk to you this year, they may not get the chance to talk to you at a career fair because your schedules may fill. What recommendations do you have to students for other ways to connect with your organization if they're unable to get a slot with you at the career fair?
I would say be on the lookout for the different events that we're having on campus. I know for Cisco, outside of the career fair, we have multiple information sessions going on. We have multiple coffee chats that are going on. So you definitely have the opportunity to, drop into some of those events and meet some of the engineers that we have. All of that information can also be found on our Cisco University website. But again, ML, who's the university manager for NC State, is really good about sending out correspondence as it relates to the event. So we will be showing up outside of the career fair. So again, you will have additional opportunities to set up and talk to our different volunteers from our different groups on the different roles that we have.
Great, thank you. And look in EPAC for those events, students, because that's where they'll be.
Yeah, the other thing to do is, as I mentioned, the Microsoft University recruiting team, that's one place. Also go out to our websites, and same thing with other companies where they have intern positions listed, right? So you have to apply, right? So if you don't do that, then doesn't matter if you are sending me a resume or not, it may not even get into the system, because when it gets into that particular system, we have dedicated recruiters and sourcers and screeners who are going through resumes based upon the needs that organizations have and then matching them, right? So it is critical you also apply to the online positions that are listed. It's not a black hole. It's not just sitting there to collect things. Trust us. We spend a lot of time doing it, and nobody would like to just do it for the sake of doing it, right? So and same thing with the interviews. When we go to the interviews, we don't want people to really fail, because we are investing tremendous amount of time and resources of our people in terms of setting up these interviews. So we want to see success. We don't want to do it to make it very difficult for you.
Thank you.
I would add one last thing, which is if there is a position that you are genuinely interested in a company that you have researched and you generally are interested in this company, but you can't for some reason get a slot, don't take that as an answer. Be aggressive. If you have any contact or the university recruiting contact at the company, mail them and ask, is there another way that I can talk to someone? And as a hiring manager, I've hired a handful of people that I did not expect to even talk to, but someone told me, hey, this person's really interested in your organization. Do you have any time? And we can be flexible. So if it's something that you're interested in, be aggressive.
Anyone else? I don't want to cut off. Okay, great.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're responsible for your career, right? That's what it really comes down to. So you have to take the initiative of getting what you want to achieve. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. And certainly that means having done your research, to circle back to the beginning, right?
Yep.
You can't follow up and do that kind of thing if you haven't done your research. I think we are, certainly getting close to the end here, but I did have one other really good question that came from the students in the chat, and that was, what are some good questions that they can ask you at the career fair? So if you have some good examples, some things that you thought, man, that was a really great question that a student has asked you before, if you could share that.
Things that have been asked to me of what is my day like? Things that have been asked to me is how has my career progressed? How did I get to where I am, right? So those are the kind of things that have been asked, right? If you value one versus the other, what is more important for you, right? Those are you'll be surprised the kind of questions that people come up with, and it's very nice to answer sometimes. It puts you in a tough position, but it's their turn to ask questions, and you should ask questions. That's another key thing. You have to do enough research. Going back to what Leslie said, enough research that you should be able to ask very specific questions, either in the terms of company or the organization or individual, right? So.
Yeah, I think recently for us, a lot of students have asked, how our technology has been used in the pandemic, like when you think about WebEx, or you think about, how we responded in terms of, COVID-19 and things along those lines. Those are really, really good because it shows that they've gone to our website, they've done some research in regards to understand what we've done, what our approaches have been. So that's a great question. And then also what we're finding lately, a lot of students are asking about our stances when it comes to social justice. What are our company stances? Announcements that have been made. How do you all feel about, X, Y, and Z? And that says a lot as well, because students they want companies that are very well-rounded, and they want, answers in regards to how companies stand and what some of the, how they address some of the issues that we're seeing in the world right now.
I like that, by the way. One of the things that I've been asked by students that I thought was actually kind of effective was sort of a behavioral kind of question to me, essentially asking, what is my passion? And they've asked in two different ways. One is they've asked, what projects have I worked on that have been so exciting that I just don't want to stop working on them? Tell me about them. And everybody loves to talk about your own projects, and they want to know, if I'm in this role, what would I get excited about if I were a student? And then the second thing, I've had some students, you might notice that I've been with Synopsys for quite some time, and I've had students ask me, why are you there so long? What keeps you there? And they're really asking, what is it that's attractive about the organization or the job or the people? And I can talk about any of those. And we could talk for half an hour about that. I don't, but so I think that's a good open question. And as a student, you can kind of guide that question a little bit with a follow-up or two to get what you really want to get out of it.
Great. Anything else for the good of the group? Well, thank you. That was wonderful. What great questions that students asked you. Those are awesome. Love to hear that. And hopefully that, sparked some imagination amongst the group that is listening tonight. Sarah, I know you want to join me in thanking this group of panelists that we've had tonight. I think we've had a really strong turnout for, as another video conference, right, that we're all dealing with. So thank you, panelists. Thank you, students, for coming. Sarah, is there anything else that you want to share with the group as well?
No, I just, students listen to our panelists. We say these things, but they're really telling you directly from the experts. You hear it, you've heard it here first. So
yes, and this is where we get our information, right, Sarah?
we might say it and you won't believe it, but when they say it, you might listen. So, you know, honestly, what I heard was be authentic, show your passion, do your research, bring your examples, demonstrate your technical skills, and roll with the punches, go with the flow. This is new for all of us. So presenters, thank you definitely for just being with us tonight and for giving our students your wisdom as they go forward. So.
No, it's my pleasure. I really enjoy talking to students. Unfortunately, couldn't do it live, but hopefully next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. This has felt like a CNN interview panel. I've loved it. So from New York, from California, from Raleigh, from Florida. It's been great to be together. So
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Have a
All right.
wonderful evening.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.